What job do you do that makes $100,000 plus with no college? Building automation technician. There's a huge need for them countrywide, and not nearly enough people are doing it. Every single university, hospital, government building, and highway authority uses it in every building now. Everyone wants to do commercial or residential electrical, but automation is 100 times safer. Max 120 volt devices, but usually 24 volt, and you learn programming. I work for Siemens. We really struggle to find people with any experience. The job comes with a company car, and we typically work 40-hour work weeks from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And not bad, a company car, no college debt, and a huge demand. This isn't a job, it's the ending to a financial fairy tale, right? Story 2. I'm a nuclear waste facility operator. I work a swing shift and make almost $100,000, not including overtime. I work 12.5-hour shifts every 28 days. I work 7 days, 7 nights, and then I have 14 days off. It took about a year and a half to get fully trained and qualified. I work outdoors most of the time, no matter the weather. I'm usually dressed in multiple layers of protective clothing. There are lots of occupational hazards, high pressure steam and air, chemicals, electrical, and radioactive ones. I get low radiation exposure fairly regularly. I have to know how a lot of equipment works together, and the paperwork is relentless. Regardless, it's a pretty sweet job. The work can be tedious, especially when it's hot or raining, but it's rarely hard manual labor. The catch is that there aren't too many of these facilities in the US. I just happened to grow up near one. Story 3. HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, boilers, engineering, operations, repair and maintenance, installation, and steam systems. Everything from apartment buildings to baby oil, detergents, gasoline, heating oil, hair products, hospitals, labs, lotions, orange juice, perfumes, schools, ships, and water needs heating and cooling. You can get your seals in New Jersey. An A or gold seal designates a first grade license, a B or red seal is a second grade license, and a C or blue seal is a third grade license. If you know boilers, you could have your own business, be a superintendent of a building, many include housing, or work in a school, hospital, development, or municipality. Also, the carrier trucks and container trucks moving these liquids need cleaning. You can work in refineries too. There are all kinds of shifts, including third shifts and a rotation of 7 days on, 7 nights on. God bless you. Story 4. As a union carpenter in Hawaii, I make about $120,000 a year. This comes with a full medical, dental, vision, and prescription coverage for you and your family. Benefits also include medical coverage after retirement and a substantial amount contributed to various retirement accounts and pensions. You don't get sick leave or paid holidays, but you do get pre-taxed money put into an account for every hour you work. I think it's like $6.25 an hour. You can withdraw your money twice a year, every 6 months. Lots of companies offer overtime, so if you do a few extra hours here and there, your pay, along with the vacation/holiday fund and retirement contributions, adds up to about $200,000. That's my experience anyway. Story 5. I'm a network engineer. You can start by getting certifications depending on your area of focus, then begin your career in a network operations center, where you'll typically take calls and tickets to troubleshoot common issues. From there, you can work your way up to a network administrator or technician, keep getting more difficult certifications and on-the-job knowledge and experience. That's just one example, but if you get some of the more difficult certifications early on, you can start as a junior engineer. I took the military route and was a 3D1X2 cyber transport. It was a great career field and taught me a lot, which I now use as a network engineer. Story 6. I'm an account executive at an insurance brokerage. No college degree is required, but you must have a life and health license. My base salary is $155,000 with a bonus of 15% of my salary. I work 37.5 hours per week, but can easily work 50 to 60 hours during renewal season. I work from home and travel to clients no more than 10 times per year. Most of my meetings are via Zoom. It's a lot of hard work requiring excellent time management, organization, great follow-up, and strong presentation skills. Many brokerage firms will hire entry-level employees, and you can easily work your way up. Story 7. I work in IT, specifically computer networking. IT has a pretty even mix of jobs requiring a 4-year degree and those that don't. For the best value, I would recommend industry certifications. Getting highly desirable certifications such as CompTIA's A+, Cisco's CCNA, or Microsoft's Azure Administrator Associate will take you far in this field. I highly recommend CBT Nuggets as a good premium resource for training. This company provides self-paced video courses complete with quizzes, tests, and labs designed around the certification criteria of many different exams. Story 8. My situation is really unique, but I'm the GM at one of the most popular vape shops in Colorado. I make $100,000 a year flat, and I get bonuses here and there. I've also been in the industry for 13 years, so I genuinely not only know what I'm doing, but also bring a lot of knowledge to the table. I pretty much do everything for the shop, from ordering and scheduling to working the front, licensing and training, you name it, I do it. I'm also always on call at any time for anything. I work 3 days on and 4 days off from Tuesday to Thursday. Overall, I'm extremely thankful for my situation, but also understand it's relatively rare for a vape shop employee to make that much money. Story 9. I'm a drone pilot for an industrial services company and make about $106,000 last year. I work mostly in refineries, chemical plants, and other industrial facilities, flying a few different types of drones to do things like confined space inspections, visual inspections, photogrammetry, bathymetry, and pressure washing. We also do a lot of work with robotic pipe crawlers, inspecting all kinds of piping systems. I do not have a college degree of any kind. I just went and got my Part 107 license to fly drones commercially and freelance for a few months before I got lucky with a job application on LinkedIn. Story 10. Sales, specifically in the security industry. I started from the bottom as an installer, running cables and fetching tools. I was even a temp worker at the time, so I wasn't an official employee with the company. I got hired on, started learning, and began to handle my own projects, eventually completing them. I got into troubleshooting new projects and then worked my way into a service role. This was across multiple companies and years. I eventually ended up in an estimating role when I moved to my fourth company. Last year, I made $116,000 and I'm projecting $134,000 this year. I have no college education, just hard work, continuous learning, people skills, and certifications at my own cost because the companies move slower than my desire to make more money. Story 11. I used to be a logistics and warehouse manager back in the early 2000s. No college degree was required. Heck, the guy I replaced didn't even have a high school diploma. All you have to be is smart, fast, able to understand logistics, clever, a good speaker, and able to manage people. There isn't a degree for that. Being able to run a forklift is helpful too, as is being a mechanic, a plumber, an HVAC technician, and a network engineer. I guess my job was an everything job in the end. My degree is in graphic design, but I've never used it. I happen to be a tech, and that's how I got the job. It did pay around $100,000, so that was cool. It was both the best and worst job I ever had. Sounds less like a manager and more like the entire cast of an action movie rolled into one person. Story 12. I'm a director over a department of Salesforce admins, developers, project managers, and business analysts. 5 years ago, I was earning $40,000. I had never heard of Salesforce. The company I worked at was acquired by its main competitor. They didn't know what to do with me, but they knew they wanted to retain me. Their Salesforce team needed a business analyst, BA, so I learned the role. They never gave me a pay raise, but when I jumped from that position to another company a year later, I literally doubled my salary. I got lucky again by jumping to a nonprofit that was about to have a leadership vacuum in its Salesforce department. I now earn well north of $100,000, and I can't believe my luck. Story 13. I was a project manager at a telecommunications company making around $150,000 per year. I actually just retired last week at 35 years old, thanks to my amazing wife getting a promotion that is having us relocate without impacting our current lifestyle. I have no college education whatsoever. I worked for the company for 15 years, and my success really boiled down to one of the best pieces of advice: PI. P, performance. If you want to succeed, you have to show it, perform at a high level. I, image. What is your brand? When people say your name, what's the first thing they say? E, exposure, network, and network. I've never had an interview. All of my roles and promotions were shoulder taps. P and I are 100% controllable by you. Your return on investment, ROI, is based on how hard you are willing to work. E, exposure is a 50-50 split between you and leadership. Get a mentor, ask questions, and put yourself in a position to take on additional opportunities. Build your brand. Story 14. I'm getting close. I'm a 42-year-old male, and I work on an amazing IT team for one of the world's largest video game developers, a household name. I have no college experience or degree. My wife is a 3D environment artist at the same company. She has 2 years at a trade school that cost her like $10,000, and she's now making $130,000 plus. They taught her to 3D model, but she has learned a lot on her own. We didn't start making this type of money until the last few years. We were mostly living paycheck to check for the rest of our lives, so it's been a fun time. We have no kids, $2,500 in credit card debt, and are saving for a home with $100,000 saved at the moment. We get to travel now, and we're going to Japan for a few weeks later this year. I can honestly say that money does fix most things as long as you're smart and have a plan. We're saving aggressively as we have no retirement at the moment due to our previous low income. You have to still remember to have fun in the moment as well. It definitely beats having panic attacks about how you're going to pay for a car repair or choosing groceries over a cell phone bill. I do not miss those times. There are still stresses, but they're different. We are mostly very, very, very lucky, and we remind ourselves of this anytime we start to complain about something trivial. Story 15. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm a CNC operator. I'm 22 years old, and I've been doing it since high school. Last year, I made a little over $70,000, but if I stick around for a few more years, I could definitely be at about $100,000. The pay cap in my area is $36 an hour, but our company pays us lower wages than we would typically get and then just gives us huge bonuses. This makes it easier on the company when business slows down. I've never seen a bonus below 40% for the quarter, and that was just one time. 50% is more common, but I've seen them go up to 75%. If you do the math with a $36 an hour wage and a 50% bonus, you're essentially making $54 an hour, which is roughly $108,000 a year. It's also a pretty fun job. Story 16. I work for a major tech company and my exact position is irrelevant because there's a shocking number of people here from entry level to senior management with no college degree. If you have a good dev/troubleshooting skills, strong people skills, and are motivated self-starter, there are loads of pathways into major tech companies. Many start at the bottom, but so many of the folks I work with rose through the ranks this way. I came in via a military transition program, so I didn't have to work my way up. Technically, I have 2 associate's degrees, AAs, but they had no bearing on me getting my job since they are from the military and are wildly unrelated to tech. Many of the people I work with have 0 degrees and 0 college. Story 17. I work in AML/BSA at a large bank. I started in a frontline position in mortgage servicing 15 years ago and proved my worth over and over. I've held about 8 different positions at this employer and have always been a top performer. I got into the AML/BSA about 3 years ago because there was a huge need for it and it came with a VP title, so I jumped in head first. It's honestly been smooth sailing. I've been happy with my progress without a degree, but sometimes I do think about the what if. What if I have gotten to this point 5 or more years earlier? It's tough to say. I do know that if I wasn't a top performer, I would have been laid off 3 times. I've seen some nasty waves of people being walked out of the building. The worst was when 80 of my closest teammates were let go and maybe a dozen of us were spared. Story 18. Some manufacturing jobs can pay well, but the scheduling can be a little rough. I've experienced a 2-2-3 shift where you work 12-hour shifts and switch between day and night shifts every few days. You'd work 2 days of a day shift, be off for 2 days, and then work 3 night shifts, and it would keep rotating. The job was ridiculously easy, but the base pay wasn't the highest, so you'd have to work a lot of overtime to hit the $100,000 mark. My current job is 6 weeks of day shifts and then 6 weeks of night shifts, which makes it a bit easier to have a normal schedule outside of work. The shifts are still 12 hours, but it's considerably hotter, like consistently 90 to 110 degrees inside. Depending on your position, you might be walking 10 to 12 miles in a single shift. It's not backbreaking work. A good day is pretty much running quality checks and maybe a little troubleshooting on a machine. The machines are pretty basic to work on compared to, say, wrenching on a car. Story 19. Supply chain management. I've gotten pretty lucky, but I spent my 20s busting my butt in warehouse jobs. It's easy to stand out when you act kind, work hard, and never call in sick, which blows, while a lot of other warehouse guys are super unprofessional and unreliable. I chipped away until I was recruited to work on an SAP deployment while the company transitioned from their H&AS 400 system. That project lasted a few years, and eventually I turned that role into a supply planning and production planning position, and then moved to my current job where I'm now a quote-unquote senior. Story 20. Trade, sales, and business owners are the top answers every time this question gets asked. Each has its own pros and cons. Trades are hard on your body and often require more than 40 hours a week. Sales is wildly unpredictable, and most sales folks, although they come on here and lie, don't make $100,000 a year. Starting a business can be risky and require way more than 40 hours a week to get off the ground. There is no such thing as easy money unless you're already wealthy. Yikes. This comment was brought to you by someone who definitely isn't in sales. Story 21. I started at FB, now Meta, in 2014 through an IT help desk tryout. I ended up being hired as a contractor for 2 years where I ran new hire orientations and set up laptop equipment for the first day. I was then converted to a full-time employee and worked my way up to a technical operations lead. That experience looked so good on my resume that recruiters stopped looking past it and never cared about the empty education section. The role carried over to Google for 6 more years. They started taking the degree requirement off a lot of job listings across FB and Google after seeing the success of hires without degrees on multiple teams. Story 22. Air traffic controller, but that's only if you get a busy enough facility and get fully certified, which can take more than 2 years after starting. You also have to maintain a physical, can't use a ton of common medicines, and are expected to work 6 days a week at most of those busy facilities. The government is constantly trying to mess with your benefits, and the union is actively working against its members by refusing to fight for pay or quality of life improvements. There's very little chance of being able to transfer to a new facility if you want to be closer to home. You can't really shop your talents around for better pay elsewhere except to foreign countries when they open an international bid. And if you can't handle a little stress, you'll never make it. It used to be a job people recommended, but now it's turned into another military-esque career. You really only benefit if you come from a poverty background where you would have ended up working in similar conditions at a worse job anyway. Story 23. I'm a power plant operator for a nuclear power plant. Although I don't have a degree, my experience in the Navy as a nuke is what waived that requirement. I'm pretty sure it's one or the other, meaning you typically will not get this job without a degree or military background. However, I see people in this industry with everything from a finance degree to a fashion degree, so what you went to school for isn't necessarily important. An aptitude test is primarily what matters. With that said, I make about $200,000 to $250,000 a year depending on how much overtime I work. Story 24, Fire Sprinkler Repair Technician. Automatic fire sprinkler systems are required by law in many states, even for small buildings. The sprinkler installers write the laws, so they make it really hard for someone to become a licensed technician. For example, it requires a 2-year apprenticeship in my state plus an exam. This means there are basically 1 or 2 big companies in the state and some independent contractors who used to work for them. The thing is, all of these systems are fundamentally flawed. The sprinkler companies write the law, so they have the legislature add things like a law requiring a dry automatic system to protect outdoor areas like parking garages. This is a total goldmine. Those dry systems have to be pitched absolutely perfectly when first installed, or they rust out, leading to bursts and expensive repairs that can only be done by, you guessed it, a certified technician. The work is the easiest plumbing work imaginable, much easier than being a real plumber. It's literally cutting pipe, putting it in, tightening some couplings, and then recharging the system. Anyone with 5 minutes training could do it, so it has to be a state-protected monopoly, and it is because otherwise any plumber or handyman could do the work. The pay breakdown, time required, approximately 15 minutes of work to fix a pinhole leak in a dry system. Cost to client, since there are only 2 big companies in town, they coordinate to have minimum charges of 3 to 5 hours at $250 per hour plus materials. So each pinhole leak costs the client a minimum of $1,500. Pay for independence. An independent contractor might get $1,000 for the same job. Hourly rate, that's about $4,000 per hour if you're an independent contractor and keep your schedule full. Considerably more per hour than a world-class cardiac surgeon and probably on par with the world's highest paid big law partners. Outside of being a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, there is nothing that even comes close except maybe an elevator technician, but that's way harder to do independently because parts are supplied by a few big companies who do not share, whereas sprinkler techs can buy pipe at Home Depot. Story 25. Not me, but an old friend of mine worked on an offshore oil rig. The job sucks, it's physically taxing, isolated, and you're in the middle of miles of water in every direction. It also involves 12-hour days for like 6 months at a time. However, after a couple of years of experience, you'll likely be making $80,000 to $100,000 while only working half the year with your basic needs covered. If you work your way up to a manager position, you'll make $200,000 plus, again, while only working for 6 months. His personal life was definitely impacted because of it. Being gone for half the year is really hard on relationships and friendships. But if you aren't tied down, it can be lucrative. My friend eventually went back to college to get a degree in geology and now works for the same company at a desk, making as much as his rig managers did. Story 26. I went to college for music composition, of all things, but I didn't graduate. I'm now a principal consultant for Red Hat, and I travel all over the USA to internet-disconnected SCIF locations to build or fix their RHEL systems. I spent 270 nights in a hotel last year, but I haven't traveled as much so far this year. I'm currently assigned to a remote job for the next few months. I'm almost entirely self-taught. I started learning Unix when I was 8 years old, began my career as a Solaris admin, and then switched to RHEL at version 4.0. I was hired by Red Hat almost 8 years ago, and am now a Red Hat Certified Architect Level 7. I have no idea why I didn't go to college for computer science instead. It certainly doesn't matter now, but I can compose a symphony for you if you suddenly find yourself in need of one. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 27. Legal Operations Manager / Legal Systems Administrator, high school diploma, plus 8 years of paralegal experience, plus 3 years of legal ops experience equals $120,000 salary. And I never worry about finding jobs. Legal ops is a brand new field, so there are almost no formal education options for it in the first place, barely even any certifications out there. When looking for jobs, I do technically compete against applicants with law degrees, but hiring managers in the field often prefer hands-on experience and technology / software / operation skills more than they prioritize legal experience and having a JD or having any degree at all. I've been hired over an attorney at least once that I know of. No one cared that I only have a high school diploma. In this field, your real-life experience can stand on its own, and I really appreciate that aspect of it. Story 28. I have a GED. My path to success, frankly, isn't possible anymore for bureaucratic reasons. In 1996, I dropped out of college due to violence and was literally fearful for my life in a south suburb of Chicago. Once I turned 18 and the school let me get a GED, I had it the very next day. In the meantime, I spent 2.5 years working at a Dairy Queen and spending every penny I had on computer parts. I taught myself how to build and install computers. In 1997, I started beta testing software from Microsoft, mostly Windows releases with occasional games and Office updates. I also started a small business building and installing computers for some local schools and political offices. I would also do occasional emergency on-site support for businesses. I didn't make much, charged too little, etc. In 1998, I got a job as a paid on-call firefighter in Riverdale, Illinois, in part because I had fixed their computers a couple of times and needed some cash. I used that to get a few computer-related certifications. In April of 2000, after a weird sequence of events related to a car fire and a broken driver for a joystick, I applied to and got a job working at Microsoft as a manual software tester. Fast forward 25 years, and I am now a technical program manager. I've managed organizations of up to 600 people. I specialize in rebuilding procedures and processes in organizations that are failing to deliver. I prefer contracting because I get bored fast and also insist on constantly learning and growing. For the last 3 years, I have made roughly $190,000 per year. Story 29. Any job that pays $100,000 plus a year, requires no college, and doesn't deal directly with the public whatsoever, hats off to you. You've made it. My friend is a team driver. To be fair, it's not $100,000, it's $80,000, but he's in a cabin and he never has to deal, talk, email, or pander to a single member of the public. He says it's $80,000, but it's worth $150,000. I'm not talking about dealing with colleagues, they're not members of the public. I'm talking about dealing with people who can unload problems on you and never see you again. People who have the anonymity to be cruel. People who don't have the anonymity but don't care and aren't cruel anyway. Random people who want you to fix a problem right now. Random people who can't see that you're not the problem. Anyone who deals with the public is a sponge, and that stress accumulates in your brain and in your soul over time, even subconsciously, whether you have a degree or not. It's worth its weight in gold not to have to absorb it. Story 30. I'm a retail manager. It's difficult sometimes, but it's chill enough most of the time. My duties include ordering, inventory, shipping, receiving, and various other tasks like handing out assignments, making the schedule, calculating payroll, bank runs, bills, handbook revisions, and training. Retail is so looked down on, but I've honestly worked my way up to higher and higher positions my whole life. I feel like the next step when I get a little older will be to open my own small business now that I understand each facet. But for now, working right under the owner is both rewarding and stable, as my income isn't based on how much money the store makes. I get paid regardless. I usually work 40 to 42 hours a week with full benefits. We have extreme overtime in the fall because of our area, but it's worth it for a calm rest of the year. This stability affords me opportunities that are more fulfilling to me: travel, visiting new countries, attending workshops, classes, and community outreach. It also gives me the money to invest in my own hobbies and interests. I love art, and because of this job, I'm able to afford trips to museums around the world for my vacation, take art classes, experiment with new materials, and even sell my own work in the shop. Story 31. I'm a former truck driver. Depending on how much you're willing to be away from home and what you choose to haul, you can clear $100,000. I worked food service for 7 years and didn't quite make $100,000, but I was pretty close. It's brutal work. You unload 20,000 pounds or so onto a hand truck and wheel it into restaurants. It's usually 10 to 15 stops a day, with shifts lasting anywhere from 10 to 14 hours no matter the weather or traffic. Hazmat and fuel hauling pays well too, but it comes with its own risks. It's a good job while you are young and healthy, but it will not keep you young or healthy long term. I ended up with a hernia, got my master's degree, and am now a teacher. The pay cut is worth a lifestyle change. Story 32. I'm a corrections officer. I can make $100,000 easily with little overtime. I have coworkers who make a lot of money off the basically unlimited overtime. I have a bachelor's degree, but I'd be making more doing this. My body is too messed up from the military to do much else around here that would pay a mortgage. I wouldn't recommend it across the board, but the right state and right institution might work. It really depends on the state when it comes to pretty much everything, especially pay. Some states pay significantly more than my example, some far less. It can be tough at times, but typically I'm making great pay doing little. However, you've got to be ready for shenanigans. Overall, you just need to be a normal person who can talk to people well, keep yourself in check, and not let emotions get to you. Commence the hate. Story 33. I'm a data center facilities manager. I handle all contracts and systems for an entire 6-building campus. I have 25 techs and 5 supervisors working under me, and a very large percentage of them are former naval submarine crew members. I dropped out of high school and got my start in a mailroom. I've worked my way up through the years and have managed some of the highest security buildings on the planet. I'm honestly not sure how I got here, as I live in an extremely competitive market. I'm literally responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars in equipment and real estate. I have 0 certifications or formal education. It's all thanks to pure experience and work ethic. Story 34. I'm a network engineer. I'm only an associate, so I don't make quite that much, but my more senior colleagues make over $100,000 while working remotely, and almost none of us have a college degree. IT is one of the few places where experience and certifications trump formal education. Although not having a degree can make getting your foot in the door difficult, It's a tough industry to get started in as you compete with many other individuals who have an abundance of certifications. The key is really getting your foot in the door and having a great attitude, as you'll likely work a help desk job for your first couple of years. I see too many newcomers who think they can amass 10 cybersecurity certifications and start their new career as a penetration tester. Story 35. I'm a server engineer for a company that sells an important product with support. As soon as I finished high school, I went to the Air Force to get training in IT, desktop administration, computer security. Once I left, I used that training to work for companies and climb the career ladder for way more money than I made in the military. I used CompTIA certifications as my only form of education that matters on my resume, but at this point, employers really just focus on my work experience and interview skills. I only expect to need a degree to join upper management, but until then, I love being a nerd in charge of my own workload and not other people's problems. Story 36. I work in tech. I only took a few classes in college and then dropped out because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I grew up building computers and troubleshooting my own issues. I started in tech support, got my CCNA and CCNA security certifications, and just climbed the ranks for a bit. As a tech support engineer, I made about $120,000 after bonuses. My new role in customer success will be paying around $125,000 per year plus bonuses, for a total of about $140,000 per year. Just be good with computers, know how to do some stuff in Linux, troubleshoot networking issues, and be pleasant. I think half the jobs I got over the years were 75% just knowing how to be friendly and make people laugh, and 25% knowing how to work with computers and servers and find answers. Story 37. My neighbor is a garbage man. He makes a six-figure salary, but he's been there a long time. Across the street is a county sheriff who also makes a six-figure salary, but only if he works security gigs on top of his regular pay. If he works through 2030, he's on track to get a six-figure salary just from the sheriff's office, but he says for the money, he'll still do the security work and retire early. For what it's worth, the county lets him use his uniform, vest, service weapon, and drive his issued police cruiser for security. He says their reasoning is if they have a badge, they have a badge. But if anything goes down, he's supposed to call it in for an on-duty officer. I've asked around, and many other departments also do this. Story 38. I'm 30 years old and a 25% partner, about to be 40% in a mechanical contracting firm. I made around $375,000 last year, and I'm on track for closer to $500,000 this year. When I was a journeyman tech in the field, I made $100,000 to $145,000 depending on the year. I started in the trade right out of high school. I got married and had my first kid at 20 while making $13 an hour. I worked incredibly hard and climbed the ladder. I bought my house in 2019 when I was 24. My wife hasn't worked since she was 7 months pregnant with our first child, and I've never been in debt other than my house. My parents always told me if you have what it takes, there's no need for college. I don't have anything against college. Sometimes you just know something is not for you. That's how college was for me. I sat down in my first community college class and just decided it wasn't for me. Story 39. I'm a culinary director. I started as a dishwasher when I was 16. I worked very hard, and after about 14 years, I became an executive chef. After 8 more years of very hard work, I was just promoted to culinary director with 12 executive chefs reporting to me. My advice to any aspiring chef is 3 things. Don't go to culinary school. This will actually put you behind financially in a field where you don't make much money in the beginning. Everything a culinary school can teach you, you will learn better on the job. Don't become a chef. It sucks just as much as it is rewarding. This career steals your life. If you still want to become a chef, you have to sacrifice your life outside of work in order to be successful. Expect 20 plus years of putting work first in order to get to a place where work-life balance can start to happen. Compare your workload to others to make sure that you are always working harder than everyone else. Don't ever get upset that someone else, usually FOH or front of house, has it easier and makes more money than you do. This worldview is poison and will ensure that you will be a 60-year-old line cook. Story 40. I work in B2B territory sales. My role is a bit more specific than that, but it's close enough. Many of my colleagues have degrees, but it's not a requirement. You would have a hard time getting in without some sales or relevant industry experience, but it is a well-paying salary job that doesn't require a degree. There are a lot of jobs where you can gross $100,000 plus without a degree these days, but for a lot of them, you're going to work an incredible amount of overtime to get there. I'm talking about the trades or other skilled blue-collar work, long hours, hard work, etc. I'm content with my degree-less trajectory, but I still tell people they should shoot for college if possible. For most people, the trades are not a quick ticket to a 6-figure salary without busting your tail to get there. Story 41. Systems engineer, admin, and network engineer, admin are both taught poorly in school and can be self-taught with a lot of stubbornness and in-home projects. Network admin is probably the easier path because there is an established certification path. No, you'll still have trouble getting an initial job, but both are possible by working for a company with a large IT infrastructure, like a cable company. You can target positions adjacent to these roles where you're interacting with employees and managers of these teams. You'll also be competing with people who have degrees, but I've never met a network manager who didn't consider certifications to be at least equivalent to a degree. And I've never met a manager for a systems operations group that does actual break and fix work who wasn't at least a little disgusted with their team's lack of troubleshooting skill and the low correlation between troubleshooting and a college education. All that said, these are difficult jobs where mistakes can hurt. They're not for everyone, but most companies are willing to consider a trusted internal applicant for a position. And many network operation centers will hire external candidates with a CCNA and a recommendation from a trusted employee. Story 42. I'm a senior associate AML KYC analyst with no college degree. I worked at a bank for 10 years in many different areas, getting promoted every couple of years. I'm just stepping into this role, and I am completely self-taught in SQL, Excel, and Alter YX. With the AI suite at work helping me out, I'm able to basically do anything in these programs related to data manipulation and visualization. It's pretty crazy what you can learn by asking the right questions to the AI and using follow-up prompts to perfect whatever it is you're doing. AI is not going to replace jobs, it's the people who are not using it that will be left behind and become obsolete. I'm not saying it's right, but it is what is happening. Story 43. I used to repair life sciences lab equipment and am now an R&D engineering technician. Basically, I'm the hands of mechanical/chemical engineers. They design a part, P&ID schematic, or something similar, and I build it. You get to work with super smart people and learn a ton while making good money. The techs in the science industry consistently make more than research assistants who are basically scientists in training. If the scientists are good and don't wash out of the field like many do, unfortunately, their ceiling is much, much higher, but that usually takes many years and a PhD. I love my job. Story 44. I'm an IT consultant. It takes a couple of years of experience plus some certifications, but if you can study for a test, you can break $100,000 within a couple of years with no degree. Or if you aren't afraid of some sweat and getting dirty, you can easily break that by learning to become a welder in a pretty short time. My nephew, who became a master electrician in a few years by working incredibly hard, makes well north of that, and my grandson, who just graduated high school, will be making that much within a couple of years as a heavy equipment operator. Story 45. I'm a professional coach. I more or less have the market cornered on 2 sports in my city, and I commute to a larger city for more work on top of that. I do almost all private work or I get contracted through the local programs for rates I negotiate myself. During the summer, I do a circuit of summer camps and clinics and load up on lessons while kids are out of school. I'm also the top-rated coach in my state on an online platform that funnels me business as well. Basically, I'm always either coaching, talking to prospective clients, or seeking out programs that need my services while being the clear only viable option for my online platform in my state. My credentials cost way more than a college education, are significantly more rare, and probably took 10 times more effort to obtain. My competitive record and ability put me in a less than 1% category, probably closer to a less than 0.1%. Prior to going out on my own, I spent 10 years in an Olympic training facility training under elite coaches. In essence, I have a Harvard-level education in the sports I coach, and because of that, I get to sidestep all the less desirable parts of the job I used to have to do before I had 20 years in. Now I get to act as a disruptor in any space I go into, and most of the coaches will roll out the red carpet to get me in the door. It's nice, but I spent my entire youth building this up and sacrificed a ton along the way. No regrets, though. Story 46. I'm an insurance broker. Some people went to college for it, but I just took a 2-week course, got my license, and here I am, 8 years later, doing it well. I work for myself, so on slow days, I can do whatever I want. It's a dream, really. I play video games at work and work from home half the time. At home, I'll have my whole house cleaned by noon, get projects done, and work out. Whatever, man. Keep in mind that I was very good at sales and took the long route. There are way different kinds of jobs as a broker across the board. Story 47. I work in maintenance at the post office. If you do the night shift and work weekends, you come out to about $42 an hour after all the premiums are factored in. Very little overtime is needed to break through $100,000. No degree is required. While I do have a 4-year engineering degree, I ditched engineering for maintenance a couple of years ago and haven't looked back. The money is better if you're willing to work for it, and I like working more than I like talking about working. Story 48. I'm a local refrigerated food CDL-A driver. Depending on where you live, my company starts you at around $95,000. I work Monday through Friday, and I'm salaried, so I personally work between 35 to 42 hours a week. Most of my stops are pallet drops with an electric jack. Some areas pay more, some less, but I'm home every night, off on the weekends, off on major holidays, and have 3 weeks of PTO. $100,000 is nice, but have you ever worked 6 to 7 hour days and taken numerous long weekend vacations a year? This is a good life. Story 49. I made money by selling art. There was a year about 10 years ago when the Reddit Gifts Marketplace was a thing and there were very few vendors. Having a website like that where they were pushing the Secret Santa folks to buy things was just amazing. For me, it was being in the right place at the right time and selling what people wanted by doing custom work. Unfortunately, Reddit shut down the store within a year's time, so I stuck with my day job, but it was so weird to me to make more money from art than from my IT job. Story 50. I work in industrial controls, which basically involves designing machine programs and interfaces. It takes a bit of learning and rapid adaptation to varying situations, but you can get there pretty easily and with no degree or certifications. Anyone can apply and get an electrician job with virtually no experience and limited skills, which is how I started here. That said, this is not for everyone. This career path involves physical labor and long hours. Story 51. I'm a service manager for an AG dealership in the dairy industry. I currently net a little over $100,000, but I work 50-plus hour weeks. In about 2 years, I'll be closer to $150,000, and my hours should start to dial back over time. I weld, do plumbing, do industrial electrical, work with three-phase, control circuits, PLCs, VFDs, robotics, and do all sorts of random other things. It takes a lot of skill and knowledge to be good at it, but it is rewarding and I love my job. And if any of these stories got to you too, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.